Greetings, my dear friends, and welcome back. Today, under the umbrella of our new series, Art Encounters, we are going to meet Anne Callahan, very interesting, very unusual artist of presenting her very special presentation under the title Trilogy, Three Facets of an Artistic Mind. But before we start our enjoyable presentation, I want to say a few words. It so happens that at the Midway Studios, where Anne resides, there is a very good great way of presenting art. Artists are not only showing the art at the gallery or in their studios, they place it on the walls of the huge hallways that we have in our building, and everyone who can pass through can enjoy it. And I do enjoy and have been enjoying all the time Anne's paintings. Once upon a time, the reception has happened at our gallery. I went to that reception of the show, a very interesting show of graphic designs, posters, branding style elements, books, etc., etc. And suddenly I realized that behind that gorgeous stuff is the same person, Anne Callahan, herself and her group that she's leading. So immediately I approached Anne thinking, how could it happen? And we started our conversation, and it so happened again that it was year-long conversation and collaboration, which has brought to you for your delight this very interesting fruit of our labor. Again, which is called Trilogy, Three Facets of an Artistic Mind of Anne Callahan. And please enjoy it.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Olga, for inviting me to this Art Encounters 2020. As Olga mentioned, my name is Anne Callahan, and I've lived at Midway now for about 4 years. I had the pleasure of meeting Olga at an opening, and she asked me to do this talk. I came up with three facets of an artistic mind to reflect the three aspects of my creative life. I don't believe that you need to only have one type of output as a creative person. I think you can be a writer, a painter, a designer. It's so much more interesting to have those many aspects come out in many different forms. So I'm going to share my screen now and go through some of the background and my different facets, and then we'll have a little time at the end to talk with Olga, and maybe she'll ask me some questions if I wasn't clear about something. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen now. So, all right. I call my presentation Three Facets of an Artistic Mind to reflect the three different aspects of my creative life: painting, design, and printmaking. Throughout the presentation, I pulled out quotes of some of my favorite artists. They have influenced my thoughts and my process over the years. I love this quote by David Hockney because it speaks to the passion artists have and the need to share their unique, personal point of view with the world. An artist is compelled to make something that does not exist or bring a deeper understanding to others about an idea or a concept. So a little bit about my background. Ever since I was a child, I loved to draw and paint and create things. I am the middle child of 7, and most of my childhood was spent growing up in Holyoke, Massachusetts, in the western part of the state. My mother was an art teacher and a painter, and before marrying my dad, and he was an engineer, and they got married in 1958. My both parents really instilled in me their love of fine arts, and I was surrounded by drawings and paintings growing up. The paintings you see here and the woodcut and the drawings are a few paintings from my mom's graduate work in the 50s. On our school vacations, our family visited cities, which my dad loved all cities, and we went to galleries and museums together. Many of my siblings are writers, musicians, sound designers, and visual artists. My parents encouraged us to express our individuality through the arts. I decided to attend Mass College of Art in the early to mid 80s, starting in the painting department, then went to illustration, and eventually landed in graphic design. Since graduating, I've continued to take classes at the museum school and the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown, and with private painting teachers. Since 2011, I've been entering my work into group shows and entering my work into auctions, for example, the Mass Art Auction, and recently curated a design poster show with another Midway creative resident. And that was how I met Olga. Okay. So my first facet, let's talk a little bit about graphic design. Graduating from Mass Art and graphic design in the mid 80s was a very exciting time for the field. An Apple computer came onto the world and all the handwork and craft of design was beginning to be done on the computer. I worked with type designers, the MIT Media Lab, and beta tested many new projects. I worked in higher education, I did advertising campaigns, high tech, and mastered the programs. And then in 1993, I joined forces with these two women, Karen Dendy Smith and MB Jurasic, to form Core Group. So Core Group is an 8-person brand strategy firm. We do design and web, and we're located in the Seaport area in Boston on Congress Street. We named the company KOR, or Core, because it's the phonetic spelling for the word core, C-O-R-E. And that was really our process, getting to the central, most important part of anything. Our design was not based on stylistic approaches. It was based on what the essence of each client. That's really the hallmark of our process. We work with education, healthcare, professional services, and nonprofits. I'd like to share a video we completed recently for our 20th anniversary. Okay. That was a really fun project. What I'd like to do now is share a few clients that we've worked with in the past. I'm going to bring up our website and just share some of the work that we've done. We've actually been working with Hebrew Senior Life for about 5 years, and I really want to share that with you today. So this is our website. We are brand creators. And we used part of the video to really give a sense of the environment that we're working in. I'm going to click on work so you can see some of the clients that we've worked with. So you'll see here, this is our website. You can see we do a lot of different types of work, from donor communications, education, nonprofit, professional services, and technology. do that now. So here you'll see we do everything from bicentennial books for Brown Brothers Harriman to Winthrop Wealth Management, campaigns for Union College, and some work for Pine Street Inn. One of the pieces I wanted to share with you today is the work that we did for Hebrew Senior Life. Hebrew Senior Life came to us to update their sales and communications materials, and we worked with the marketing department to create senior living brochures, folders, sales sheets, and a range of templates for Hebrew Senior Life. We also worked with them on we're also working with them on their capital campaign, and we named and branded it Age of Opportunity. This is the logo type. And some examples of some work that we've done. Also, Newbridge on the Charles and Orchard Cove needed an upgrade of their communications. So we created folders and brochures that highlighted the really unique qualities of each one of these properties. We did all new photography and met so many wonderful people at Orchard Cove and Newbridge on the Charles. We also been working with Caitlin Quinn, who is the Chief Development Officer, to create donor communications and recently redesigned their Inspire newsletter. It's interesting, this cover on the front, I met a photographer at Midway, Joel Benjamin, and he had all of these really cool images from his mom. And this was about an Alzheimer's disease research grant. And we thought, what an amazing way of showing like somebody's life and past. So he was not only the photographer, but he styled the whole shoot as well. So that was really fun to be able to work with someone in the building. So I'm going to go back and maybe just share a couple more things with you and then talk a little bit about the show we just did. I especially love this piece we did. Pine Street Inn is an amazing organization that's been around for a long time. We worked with them on their campaign case statement called Key Moments, and we did photographs, beautifully elegant photographs of people who are transitioning from homelessness to permanent residency. We also worked with them to develop a look and feel for their Key Moments 50th anniversary event, which was very successful and helped them to raise money for their capital campaign. The final piece I thought I'd share is something very different than those two pieces. We create a lot of brands for many different professional services companies. And the one I'd like to show you is BR plus A. They're an engineering firm. And they had been on for many, many years, and they wanted a refresh of their logo, the proposals, their brands, their website, their signage, and we also did a video. So this is their new logo. I should probably show you the old one, but I don't have it. But anyway, so this is their new identity. The forms are really, I think, very architectural and clean and modern. This is the brochure. Their website. Some of their sell sheets. And we also did the signage. I'm just going to share one more video with you that this was kind of their tagline, responsive buildings, responsive people. And this gives another, I think, idea of the type of work that we do.
Can a building ever be more than just a building? Can it listen? Can it teach? Can it heal? Can a building respond to its inhabitants, its surroundings, its community? Can it help us collaborate better, dream bigger, and be more than who we are today? At BR Plus A, we engineer environments that make a difference, designing high-performing buildings where people and ideas thrive, offering solid advice and unwavering support, no matter how complex, how challenging, how critical that job may be. Because for us, a building is never just a building. It's our chance to help you do something great. BR Plus A. Responsive buildings, responsive people.
So that gives you a little bit of a sense of the type of work that we do. So now I really want to shift gears a little bit to a recent poster show that I curated with another resident of Midway Studios, Cliff Stoltz, and our design groups, Core Group and Stoltz Design. It was really interesting to plan and hang this show. It was a chance to look back at work I had done in the past and see kind of the connections that occurred between them. The name Juxtapost speaks to the contrast of work of two design firms, creating posters for a variety of clients. This is how I kind of laid out the look and feel of the poster show. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I've done and work from other people in my firm, give you an idea of the show. So early in my career, I designed many large-scale silkscreen posters for nonprofits such as Boston Ballet and Huntington Theater Company. I just love the feeling of silkscreen. It's such like beautiful, intense, rich color. And because they didn't have a need to do a lot of these, silkscreen was the perfect choice for printing these. The same with the Huntington Theater Company. These large 30 by 40 silk screens hung in the glass cases on Huntington Ave to advertise the shows. One of my loves was going to the Albany Street silk screen printer and approving color and looking at the quality, and it was such an enjoyable process. Eventually, Huntington Theater Company decided to go on offset printing, and Core Group worked with them for many years on many performing arts posters. So these were highlighted and shown at the show. These are a variety of other smaller ones that we also showed, from everything from James Joyce's The Dead to Hedda Gabler. So it was a very fun and interesting way of combining graphics and typography with the theater. I also designed posters for the AIGA, where I was the vice president for the American Institute of Graphic Arts for a time. And this is one that my business partner and myself designed to advertise a lecture by Gordon MacKenzie. Gordon MacKenzie was this, I think his title was creative guru or something at Hallmark Cards. And for many years, he spoke eloquently about the chaos of creativity and the discipline of business, living together peacefully and joyfully. I loved his attitude. He was actually very influential when we first started Core Group. He was an amazing mentor and an inspiration to us all. Over the years, my firm created posters for many printing companies and universities, and this Juxtapost poster show featured many of these pieces. This was done for Millennium Graphics when they opened their new plant. very experimental. We wanted to use bright, bold colors and really make it fun. This is how we decided to tile them so they could be really huge and really powerful when you came into the lobby of Midway Studios. And then finally, we also show some work that we did for Bridgewater State University, I'm sorry. Okay. So now I'm going to go into my second facet, which is the painting work that I do. So in 2016, I sold my house in Newton. I moved to Midway Studios. Midway is like an artist-only live-work building in the Fort Point area of Boston. And what I love about it is there's all types of creative people that live and work here, from writers to photographers, performance artists, and more. That's the lobby. In my studio, it was the first time since college I actually had a large space to paint and create art, and the light and the environment was an inspiration to me. I love this sentiment by Matisse because I have always been inspired by color combinations and love mixing paints and pigments. I love bold, bright hues in contrast to deep, moody tones. One of my greatest pleasures is the action of mixing and blending hues and paints and selecting the color palettes for my paintings. My landscapes express my love of color and natural beauty. In this painting of Bermuda, and the one prior to it, I love the contrast of the salmon rooftops and the beauty of the turquoise water. The rocks in this painting have strong personalities, and I feel like they are full of energy. And the water seems to sway from dark depths to transparent whites. Traveling has always been an inspiration for my work. This was painted from the island of Kauai in Hawaii. And a trip to Maine inspired this boat diptych. And what I like to do is I like to start with I begin with a bright pink underpainting. And as I paint, I leave some of the background peeking through. And that's kind of my technique for my landscape painting. The hues and tones of the Jackson Hole, Wyoming landscape started me on a whole series of bison and Western feeling landscapes. Edward Hopper is a wonderful painter. I love this quote about invention and the essential element of imagination. I love his portraits and sense of light. My artistic process begins with an impulse. A photograph, a person, an experience, or a new place compel me to paint. I start with a vibrant underpainting. For example, this one was a really bright orange, and I sketch the composition with paint. And I tend to work really fast and furiously, which is why I work in acrylics, because they dry quickly. It captures kind of the immediate energy of the moment. Details aren't really critically important to me. Sometimes I leave faces blank and the backgrounds can be ambiguous. This series I call The Pool People. They were inspired from California and trips to Florida. I'm really more interested in forms and shapes created by analogous hues. Bold, large, visible brushstrokes and blending colors, wet into wet, create the energy and spontaneity of my paintings. About 3 years ago, I decided to go to the Provincetown Fine Arts Work Center. And it's an unbelievable week-long retreat where you work with one artist and just really delve into and really spend a lot of time working on things that interest you and learning new techniques. About 2 summers ago, I worked on figurative painting with oils and charcoal. And recently, one of the paintings that I completed called Divided, it's 3 figures. It was chosen to be included in Modern Love Show in the FPAC Gallery exhibit. My attitude is not to succeed, but to discover new things with each piece I do. And my still lifes are another area of interest for me. Bottles, fruit, glasses, bowls are all beautiful shapes and forms. I set them up in my studio and invent the backgrounds and the color palettes. Last year, I started really getting into a pear phase. Early in my career as an artist, I did a lot of watercolors of pears, and I really loved the sensuous forms and the shapes of fruit. So I started this for Open Studios this past fall. I started painting these large scale pears and tiny ones too. I love the huge scale of something so small becoming larger than life. And this painting was accepted into the mass art auction and sold in April. So I was really happy about that. And these are probably about 48 by 48, I think. This one's especially, I think this one's even bigger. This was the first one I did actually, and got kind of created the series. And I like to do apples sometimes too. All right. Continuing on my painting. In March, when COVID struck, I was very stuck. I wasn't able to paint. I wasn't able to design. I wasn't able to really do much. I just didn't feel like it. I couldn't figure out why, but it just was, everything that was going on in the world was really so disturbing. And I started to look at the work of Corita Kent. She was a nun, actually, in the 60s. And she has this quote, "When art has changed at the beginning, it's because the world is changing." And that kind of, it felt so relevant to today. She did these really strong silkscreen posters with typography and pop art kind of look and feel. So a friend of mine recommended that I take this Zoom class called The Infinite Well with Adria Arch. And she has definitely enabled me to loosen up and play with contour drawings and paints and working with objects. These started like egg beaters, but they turned into like, I don't know, artichokes, and really enabled me to loosen and just not feel like I have to do a finished product or judge what I'm doing, but just enjoy the actual process of painting, which has been really, really helpful. I started working with very different kinds of color palettes, which are new to me. And I started a series of these scroll paintings based on some of the initial figurative kind of like exercises she gave us. What I like to do is create these loose kind of gestural paint strokes or drawings or lines, and then choose color palette and then stencil and collage on top of them. These are a few of the ones that I'm most excited about. And the left is they're about 5 feet, and the right is like detail. want to do more of these. These are interesting to me. And then one of the prompts was, if you can think of heaven and hell, what would it look like? And I said to myself, well, I don't really believe in heaven or hell, but if they want me to paint the afterlife, it's got to be colorful, it's got to be energetic, it's got to be beautiful, it's got to be dramatic. So this is my afterlife scroll. I also started doing these accordion books with fragments of work and collaging together these kind of books to form narratives with each other. In this recent accordion book, I took a newspaper. What the prompt was to take the cover of a newspaper and just pull out random things. Of course, this is in April and May, where everything was about coronavirus. And I think it really translates my anxiety and the feelings of loss. This idea of our control being gone, the turmoil of our world, I feel is reflected in this book. And this is kind of where I've ended with my painting recently. I'm combining stencils of typography with contour drawings and trying to experiment with metallics and different papers. That's a recent one that I did of contour drawing of paintbrushes with a overlay of metallic stencils. Okay, now we're going to go to my last facet. This is the printmaking facet of my art making. I think my love of design and print come together in the art of printmaking. This is the first print I ever completed. It's a silk screen. I completed it in the 80s and recently found it and entered it into an auction in 2018. Then in 2016, I decided to go to the Parents Work Center and do a monoprinting class. It was an intensive week-long course, and I learned all different kinds of techniques and created some interesting prints, I think, that are bold and graphic. I use a plexiglass plate and stencils, and it's just a really interesting process. This is some of the work that I did during that class. The following year, I signed up the Fine Arts Work Center for a Social Justice Week and a woodcut class. So I am currently on the board of the Stop Handgun Violence organization. And this gave me a wonderful opportunity to take a woodcut class and create posters and collages that speak to the need for gun legislation and common sense gun laws. So this is the recent woodcut via an auction and some of the other work that I did. These were collages that I also did in combination with the woodcuts. And this is a lino cut that I recently completed of the Powder Point Bridge in Duxbury. I didn't have a press and I wanted to print it during the COVID time, so I used a wooden spoon to press the ink into the paper. Kind of interesting, I like it. So I'm drawn to the forms and ideas of Helen Frankenthaler. She had a wonderful show in Provincetown Art Museum about 2 years ago, and I totally relate to this quote about breakthroughs and rules. Recently, I started taking another class for gelatin printmaking. I'm really excited at the possibilities and the experimentation. I'm going to share a video with you of the process shortly, and then so you can understand a little bit about how I work. These are just a few recent pieces that I did in the past 2 weeks. This was interesting because it was kind of a mistake. I put too much water on the gelatin plate, and everything started to bubble up, and I just grabbed a quick print. Kind of interesting. Looks like a snowstorm. And then I did the same with this one by accident. It looks like blood, but that's my thought. But it could be cropped. I think there's some interesting possibilities there. Okay, so now I'm gonna share my screen again and show the video.
Okay, so hi everybody. I just started this process called the gelatin prints, and I am really excited about it. And it's some of the prints I showed you earlier in the presentation. So I thought I'd just show you how I go about doing it. It's really quite fun and easy, and the surprises happen all the time. So let's see. What I'd like to do first is pick a couple pieces of paper. I have I'm a designer, so I get a lot of paper samples. So it's great. They're like 12 by 18, perfect size for prints, 8.5 by 11. So what you do is you take the jelly print, which is right here in the middle. It's made out of some kind of a gelatin material. I put it on the paper and taped everything down. And then I eyeball it, because you can always crop this later. Eyeball the paper and put it on top. And then I hinge this at the bottom. Or you can hinge it at the side, either way. Pick that up. There's no ink on the plate, so there's nothing to worry about now. And I'm going to do the same thing with this side. Just place it on and hinge it. It's really kind of interesting. Done a lot of printmaking, but this is pretty much the easiest one I've done so far. And I'm going to do one more just for good measure. I'm hinging with just this paper painting tape because it's easy to come off and doesn't rip your paper. Okay, so then the first thing I'm going to do is basically take my paint, and I love this color pink. So I'm actually going to put it right on the plate. Usually I mix it in advance if I'm doing something really different. But in this case, I'm just going to use my brayer, my orange brayer, and it's a little bit too much paint. So you have to kind of figure out what the mammoth paint is. This is the open paint series, slow drying acrylics, which are great because they're so fluid and so transparent. And no, I don't work for the company, but I really do love them. They're really awesome. All right, so this is maybe a little bit too much ink. See what I'm doing? It's just demonstration. Okay, so now I found these feathers on the beach, and I thought, seagull feathers, this might make an interesting composition. Who knows? So I'm just going to place them on the plate haphazardly. And anywhere they are, obviously you'll see when I put this down. Oops, you want items that are kind of like flat. You don't want too many big items because, I mean, too much depth to them, because then you can't really, you'll see what I'm going to do. Okay, so now the first piece I'm going to hinge on, and I'm just going to rub. If there's no press, this is the press. This is what we're calling the press. Just going like this. I rub, I try to get the edges. I mean, it doesn't really matter how you do it. Just rub it on, I'm getting the ink on the paper. And I think this gelatin print kind of is great. Thing. Okay. Great, so here's my first reveal. So you can see where I put the feathers, you get a negative print. So now I'm going to go to this one, do it again. And you'll see there'll be less ink on the paper. I'm actually going to rub a little bit in certain areas because I wasn't quite sure how much detail would come out. I like having a lot of detail. If I'm going to do this, you know, feathers, a lot of hairs coming out. Interesting. So, all right, so let's see what happens here. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. You can see that. It's making a lot of abstract shapes. And then, I think on this one, might take one off. Let's take one off. And maybe in this case, I'm gonna, I don't know, add a shell or something. I'm gonna have this shell. Just figure it out. Let's see what happens here. This will be what they call a ghost print. It won't be as intense as the other colors. So that's basically the process. And then once they dry really quickly, so then you can ink up your plate again and do another level. And that's pretty much how I created all of the prints in the last portion of this section. It's really a really fun way to be able to print at home, especially now with COVID, not going into classes and doing all the things we used to do, but it's really a way to kind of open up your mind, and the surprises are kind of just wonderful. Like, you don't expect things, and they come out really cool. That one is actually really fun. It has a lot of movement in it. So that's it. So that's the whole process. I'm gonna stop it now, and I'll show you how they all come out at the end. So now I'm putting on the second color, and I just tried something a little bit differently, using like a kind of like blocking out a section, because I like keeping some of the white. So I kind of blocked out this section, which is kind of cool. You can kind of see, it's almost like some, it's a little bit interesting. This one, I think what I'm going to do, I think I want to block out that section. I might do something a little different here. I love that color. It's such a beautiful color. I'm going to see. You might just see what happens if I just put these back on. Too busy, fun, I don't know, we'll see. Just, just experimentation, really. What, sometimes it gets to be a mess, it gets a happy accident or a mess, but in some cases, you just don't know what you get sometimes. You try to plan, but, that's kind of cool. I didn't know what I was going to get, but that is actually really cool. Love the textures. Now, let's do the last one. I kind of want to plate again. This is just maybe cheating a little bit, but I am going to cut this plate and see if there's any stuff left here. Really was the way that's thinking. Wow, that's kind of cool. Just See what happens there. This is the last one of the feather series. See what happens. It's not really a lot of pressure yet. Oh, it's just pretty cool. Sometimes less is more learning this process. Sometimes they get a little bit too saturated and too complex. Yeah. Sometimes the simpler ones are better. Let's see what I can see. Interesting. A little busier.
Okay, so now I am. Oop. So basically, these are the two that we just did, which I think there was kind of gives you the final product. Get to look at the detail a little bit more, but that's the process. And I love the use of the natural objects and the lights and darks. So I think that ends my 3 different facets. I mean, I believe a creative person doesn't need to specialize in any one form of art. I believe creativity is like a force within that changes and grows over time.
I was thoroughly enjoying the whole presentation. I wanted it to be no end.
Oh, nice. So it wasn't boring? I felt like I was being boring.
Come on.
Oh, good.
It was really very cool. It was very challenging for my mind.
Oh, good.
And sharpening my mind and nourishing my soul.
Oh,
and
good.
because you did such a good job, you're gonna have a very difficult question that you stating you are all very frequently asked. And the question I'm going to read because I took it from some of your materials. The question is, how do the different facets of your artistic mind influence your creative work? What do you say? With my deepest thank you, that will be the end of the whole story. Your answer.
Okay. Well, I think as I was creating this presentation, I was pleased to see that the creative facets seem to inform each other. There seems to be color and form and typography that are a thread that go through all of my work. In my design work, I'm usually doing something for a client. There are goals or objectives. It's a collaborative process. You want to creatively solve a problem for your client, help the business or service, stand out and be successful. And in my design work, I work almost entirely on the computer. And it's much more of a structured process. There's discovery, there's messaging, there's the creative, creative presentation, and then you either develop it through printing or digital or web development. And it's a much longer methodology, and there's a lot of details and business strategy informing the final product. So I feel like in my paintings, it's such a contrast to that. I feel like in my paintings, it's really, I'm following my own visual aesthetic. I work alone and for my own, artistic pleasure. I use the computer. Very rarely do I use the computer for my paintings. And I really love working with my hands and expressing, myself without restraint, which is so different than what I do for my work every day. And I actually feel really relaxed when I'm painting. I just kind of, it's like kind of, I go into like a a mode, and it brings me joy, and makes me happy. And it's a really nice, I think, a nice balance between the design and then the painting. And then what's so cool with the printmaking is like, it's the perfect combination of design and painting. It's like, it comes full circle. Like it's a process. There's definitely a process, and depending on what kind of printing you're doing, it's a process, and it's a detailed process. But I think the understanding that I have of printing, whether it be silk screening, offset printing, all of the other areas of design, I think affects and influences my printmaking. You know, what colors do I choose? What do I, you know, how do I work with transparencies? There's all of that kind of is very involved with design. You know, and when you're doing offset printing, you have to be an exact registration, you're using CMYK. But with this new printing process that I just tried, it's much more free and open-ended. So I feel like that's how everything kind of works together in my mind. And I think my design, my typography, my color palettes, all of them influence each other and allow me to express a different aspect of my personality.
I wanted to say thank you again. It was really very cool. Thank you much.